Welcome to Sip with Summers, the podcast where we talk about sex, intimacy, and pleasure. Because someone has to, and let's be honest, it may as well be me. I'm your host, Jennifer Marie Summers, board certified sexologist, certified sex coach, menopause coach, and your favorite inappropriate friend with a microphone. So grab a drink and let's get into the good stuff. Because pleasure is your birthright, and awkward is my love language. Let's spill, sip, and say the things most people whisper. Welcome to the show.
Today, we are getting into something that so many of you struggle with and don't always know how to talk about, and that is mismatched desire. Because let's be honest, typically one person wants it more, one person wants it less, and then suddenly sex becomes this loaded thing instead of something that's fun and connecting. And so today, I'm very excited to be joined by Dr. Lori Davis. She's a board certified family nurse practitioner and ASEX certified sex counselor who specializes in mismatched desire. So you are in the right place. She's one of the few experts who blends medical, emotional, and somatic sides of sexuality. And she's been featured in the New York Times, Oprah Daily, and Women's Health. She also teaches sexuality counseling at the University of Michigan. Dr. Lori is here to help us move beyond shame and into more pleasure, presence, and connection. Dr. Lori, I'm absolutely thrilled to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you for that lovely introduction. I am excited to get into it.
Yes, let's start here. So, why is mismatched desire so common in relationships?
Yeah. And boy, is it. I would say that mismatched desire is the number one complaint that couples will bring into sex counseling or therapy, or maybe it becomes a part of their marriage counseling when they came in with something else. I mean, to me, it makes perfect sense because, of course, mismatched desire is normal, right? The idea that I'm going to want it at the same time, the same frequency, in the same way as my partner does until the day we die is just an unrealistic expectation. So my question has always been not why is there mismatched desire, but why does mismatched desire cause so much suffering for some people? I think that's the question. And a huge part of my work is trying to understand why that happens and why it feels so intractable once it gets off to the races. And I think that's a big part of what we'll be trying to talk about today is trying to help people understand why is it so painful?
Yeah, I agree. So many women that I work with, my parties, with my coaching practice, they feel like something is wrong with them because they're not walking around being spontaneously aroused all the time.
And so it often becomes the case that the lower desire, and again, I just want to say, I don't think anyone is really low desire per se. It's just lower desire in relationship here with this person in this context. So anyway, the person who's lower desire usually feels like the problem. They are the identified patient. They are the one who needs to get it together. They are the one who's withholding, which by the way is one of my least favorite ways to describe the situation. And I think that is a completely upside down way to think about it. I think it's a couple's problem. It might live in a certain way in the low desire partner's body, which feels like shutdown and managing withdrawal. And it might live in the higher desire partner's body, like urgency and pressurize, like feeling around desire. Each person's experiencing something different, and they each are going to have to do work to unwind the dynamic. Yeah.
What do you think people are getting wrong about desire?
I think that the biggest way I see it come into my office is that people think desire, it's like the metaphorical feeling that it's like there's pressure building in my body. I am a little machine. I'm a little teapot. And heat's being applied and the pressure is rising in me. And as the pressure rises, the steam is coming out of my ears. And that steam can manifest as putting out a stink, feeling really sad, feeling really upset, feeling really dejected. It's not the idea that you shouldn't have feelings about maybe not getting what you want in life. Sure, we all have feelings about that. But the idea that we trace it back to this pressurized model of desire, I think is a huge component of why mismatched desire gets off to the races so poorly, because one person is experiencing it that way. They believe that's normal, natural, it's obvious, it's evolutionary, and another partner is agreeing with them, essentially. And the idea is like we're enlisting the lower desire partner to manage the steam, manage my pump for me. I don't want to like oversell that particular narrative because I don't think that all high desire partners feel that way. And yet, I think that often it's like a subtle underlying view, the idea that, yeah, me and my wise adult, I know that's not true, but then we put me under pressure, put me under stress, and then some of that starts to come forward. So I think that's a huge part of it, right? Desire is a need, desire is a drive, desire is a pressure. And I think Emily Nagoski, other people have other, my view is like that desire is, I love the way she talks about desire is just curiosity. I call it waggy tail energy.
Yeah. Okay.
It doesn't have a demand. Yeah. It's waggy tail energy. It's curiosity. And it's just wanting. It's just wanting. And that's a very different way to hold and a very different way to interact with someone who has wanting and curiosity and waggy tail energy than feeling like it's a pressure I have to take care of. Yeah.
I feel like desire gets buried under stress and life and caring for parents and kids and bills and work and everything else. And it can be more challenging to access that when life is lifing.
Yeah. So that's the other side of the coin. Like, what is desire? On the one hand, the lower desire partner's desire becomes a medicine or a balm for the pressurized model of desire for their partner. That's a tricky place that people get stuck in, which, by the way, is not hot. That's what I always say to people. It's not hot to feel like I have to have sex with you so you feel better. Like, that's not hot. That kind of sexual generosity is great in a relationship, but it's not the foundation of like how we're going to do this thing together. And so everything you're saying on the converse side about low desire makes so much sense too, right? Medications, life, overwhelm, stress, being, completely lost, any energy whatsoever. I think that low desire partners often go through predictable patterns in relationships too. The idea that that's normal. I mean, it's normal for them. And then it makes sense that desire changes across time. Everything in the relationship is changing across time. Why would we not think that desire would change? And the question is, how can we both become good stewards of what's happening with us? If that means your desire feels more muted in terms of the heat and spontaneity and the intensity of it, okay. But pleasure and intimacy and wanting, always possible.
Now, moving from desire into sex.
Yeah.
What actually happens in the body when sex starts feeling like pressure instead of pleasure?
Yeah. I think the pressure instead of pleasure makes the higher desire partner's feeling of desire more intense. We talk about this idea of the angry little monitor. If I want something and I don't get it, then it makes me want it more. It increases the feelings in the body fundamentally. My anxiety and my worry about it is going to increase the way that feels. And similarly, when it feels like pressure, well, that's not hot for our low desire partners. It's just not a pressure. A pressure does not make desire happen. I think the other thing that I like to really point out are just some like common ways that it shows up. And one of those is what I call the sex clock. So the sex clock is like, oh, we just had sex. It restart. Now the clock is reset to midnight. And now it starts ticking, tick, tick. And now I'm as the higher desire partner, like, okay, that was great. We had sex, but when are we going to have it again? How long has it been? It's been 3 weeks. Am I ever going to have sex again? Are we going to have a sexless marriage? That the frequency becomes a stand-in for all the conversations we don't have. They're monitoring frequency because they're worried about rejection and a life lived without pleasure and sex. And the other side is monitoring frequency because they're trying to manage their partner, And so everyone, it's sort of like everything in every moment just becomes like a ticking of that clock, right? So I'm monitoring, like, are you touching me? How did you look at me? Like, I know 3 days in, you start to usually get a little bit more stressed out. I mean, when I talk to my clients, they're very aware of the clock inside their partner. This is the low desire partner. And they know, oh no, we're 10 minutes to midnight. I need to do something. And so the idea that sex isn't what we're after a clock that's ticking, tick every day of my life. I think that is one of the most noxious experiences that people have in their relationship, that everything gets subsumed under this loud, hyper vigilant monitoring of frequency, that it makes it almost impossible to enjoy any of it. And so I think I tell clients they need a sex clockectomy. We just need to cut that right on out of there. even naming it helps people see that, like, oh, that's not necessary, that we could have a mismatched desire without that clock ticking and without monitoring and wondering, and how long has it been? And I think that's a one entry point into thinking about how mismatched desire isn't about having lower desire partners have more sex or higher desire partners have less sex. It's things like this. We need to get that sex clock out of your house, out of your life, out of your mind, and out of your bedroom. And until we do that, we're not getting very far. So that's just like one example of like, how does this all feel in reality? And what are the like things we're trying to reconsider and bring new perspectives to?
Thinking about that clock metaphor and how it is just a proof of a disconnection with a relationship for the lower desire partner that maybe feels that pressure, or even the higher desire partner that's like, it's been a week. But then also too, getting that clock out is brilliant, because then it's like we can focus more on us and less on like the time that it's been since we've done this thing.
It just, that whole clock is like hijacking the system. We talk about the nervous system and how the nervous system is reacting to this, like the ticking of a clock, the constant humming of that question of when did we do it last and when are we going to do it now? And is this right now going to happen? That kind of like mindset has to go. I think a lot of that has to be that the lower desire partner really believes deep in their heart that their partner and their relationship will be okay if they don't have sex. And they have to hold the also paradoxical truth that their partner doesn't want to live in a sexless marriage or relationship, partnership.
Yeah.
And both of those things, we can hold two things that are opposite, right? That we can hold those two things are true. And that's work that the lower desire partner has to do, because they are often we can be people pleasers and worried about upsetting partners for real reasons even. And the other side, we have to manage ourselves and become relational in our desire.
You talk about somatics and nervous system work, Dr. Lori. What does that actually look like in somebody's sex life?
Great question. I think what it means for me is it's about slowing down, right? I know that sounds like so obvious, but it's about slowing down and paying attention. It is noticing, to me, it's like, let's bring a little stimulation into the system. And what I mean by that is like an experience. Like, let me move towards my partner. Let me ask for what I want. Let me remember some of that and notice what happens in my body when I do that. Something might get a little turned on. Something might want to pull away, right? There's often a lot of ambivalence, right? People want to move towards and they want to move away, so that we tune into, I think one of the big things we're tuning into is ambivalence. Or on the higher desire partner side, we might be tuning into the intensity of longing. You know, we might be tuning into fears. And so we go towards sexual experiences either actively or, maybe more present experiences with our partners or in our memory, and we notice what happens in our body. That's a somatic experience to me. And being willing to like be with that compassionately and non-judgmentally, and it's okay and it's here. And if I can develop a new relationship to that experience, then I can be a wise person with choice and not hijacked by parts of myself that have points of view.
So would you say it's less about like fixing the libido and more about helping the body feel safe again?
Absolutely. I think that's a really good way to say it. You know, I think that I'm always like hesitant around safety language, because I know that can feel really, that can be used as a weapon. It can be hard for higher desire partners who are doing a fantastic job to hear that. I think safety is relative, but I guess maybe my tone would be more of like regulated.
Okay.
Expansive, spacious, autonomous, knowing I have choice. And that might look like we're not having a very like a good experience, right? It's not like it's all easeful, but it's just like I have all of my capacities online. That's what I'm really wanting people to be able to do as they approach sex. So in my mind, you know, we're in our normal everyday sorts of self, and then we're trying to approach each other. And when we do that, we get activated.
Yeah.
And old stuff comes up and nervous systems start doing weird things. We need to be able to come towards each other. And the somatics help us do that enough that we can calm down, like just in easy everyday parlance.
Yeah.
And that your partner, that you can tolerate what you're feeling on the inside and just the truth of it. And your partner can tolerate what they're feeling on the inside. And you can tolerate each other's inner experience as well, that no one's getting like popping off and getting super dysregulated because they learn what their partner feels or because they're afraid of what they feel. Safety is in like being able to feel what I feel and be okay with feeling what you feel.
I think regulation is a really important shift of the word. It's almost subtle to me, but I think about being regulated helps you feel safe, but being safe does not mean you're regulated.
That's good. And regulating isn't putting a cap or a lid on it. It isn't ignoring. That's one way to regulate. This is a kind of regulation that comes from being with, not avoiding.
Yeah.
Which is people aren't
100%.
trained to do that very well.
Unfortunately, like none of us get this
None of us
playbook.
are.
And then we watch TV and movies and we see people having spontaneous desire where they lock eyes and they're banging in the bathroom like 1 minute later. And it's just not realistic.
It's great when it happens. And I want to put 2 hands on my heart and I want to say, oh God, thank God. Thank God for that. And that's not how it goes in a long-term relationship, which is what I'm usually working with. That like, that's just not how it is. That's sad. We grieve that, but also we stay present and we create something new, which is things that are never possible for banging in the bathroom. Banging in the bathroom, thumbs up to that. And there's other stuff. And what can you discover there? I think that's the reframe. One of the reframes we're trying to give. We're at home and it's 20 years in, we're going to have to navigate a lot more between me and you, in the space between me and you, right? There's a lot of stuff in here I got to navigate. And that stuff comes from a long time ago.
Yeah.
And that stuff comes from the culture. And that stuff comes from core beliefs that you didn't even know you believed in. And then being intimate with each other. So, oh, wow, all of a sudden we're healing, we're growing. What are we getting enlightened here? Being in the bathroom might be a certain kind of enlightenment, but there's like a different kind available here doing this work and using the erotic connection between you and the other person to push you to do the work you need to do around all these parts that need to be seen and worked with, that can feel that inhibit us or overwhelm us. Yeah.
So let's talk about a moment that most people don't like to admit. And that's when your partner initiates and you're like, ugh.
Yeah.
Tonight, what's happening there?
Yeah. Well, first of all, maybe you just don't want to do it tonight. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, no problem. What is the initiation? What's initiation being done? I feel like we can do so much rehab in a sexual relationship by really working through how initiation is going down. Because you will not believe the stories I hear about the 12-year-old style advances and the passive aggressive and the criticism. It's just so complex because when people go to initiate, it's activating the same weird stuff that we all carry around rejection, putting ourselves out there and being vulnerable. And so that's going to kick up stuff for that partner. And so maybe one partner says, please don't grab my butt as a way to initiate sex. And the other person's like, they can't hear it. They're trapped in their own version. So I just want to highlight that to say, it's not just the low desire partner that's getting hyped. It's about initiation. It's about what do you like in terms of initiation. I think the feeling of the automatic reaction of no, I would say, congratulations if you really feel no and that's what you want to do, like more power to you. But the automaticity of no, which I might make up about the feeling where we go, ugh, is something to be curious about. Because I think if the question comes in and it's very easy from a non-aroused state, I'm just going to the grocery store or whatever the hell it is I'm doing, and you invite me to sex, my first answer is going to be no, because I'm in a different kind of state. I'm not in a pleasure receptive state, is one way to say it. I'm in some other state. And so it's just a question of like, what am I saying yes to? Am I saying no to? Am I saying no automatically? And can I hang tight there after the no to see what happens next? Because people say, oh God, no, I'm so tired. And I'll say, well, were you tired before that question came in? And sometimes people are like, no. I'm like, oh, and if someone offered you ice cream, would you feel tired at that point? It's like, no. So it's like trying to be really curious about the immediacy of the answer and what are the reasons why that repetitively come in. You asked me to have sex and suddenly I feel really tired. you ask me to have sex and suddenly I just feel super put out and overwhelmed. That's stuff to be curious about. It's not saying you're not overwhelmed in your life. Like, I'm not trying to like make a mountain out of a molehill in a way, but it's about being super curious with the automaticity of my response.
So it sounds like there's the low desire partner who may feel pressure. And then there's the high desire partner that may feel rejected. So it lessens connection. But in regard to the curiosity aspect, is this something like, let's get curious about this right now? Let's talk about it tomorrow. Where does this conversation and curiosity fit in that moment when there's pressure and rejection and ego and a lack of connection?
Yeah. Communication, I think some basics on communication would just be, please don't talk about it when you're upset. We have to be in a regulated enough state. However you think about that. I call it wise adult. Like wise holding me. That is like a compassionate towards myself and partner kind of space. So I have to be in the right space internally before I go into the conversation. And then help my partner, if hopefully you can have some conversation. I hope you're in the same state too. If not, we can pause this. Don't do it in the bedroom. Don't do it when someone right before or after sex. Give it a little space. You know, could we talk about it over a cup of tea? Could we talk about it while we go for a walk? Put boundaries around it, not for 7 hours, not until we're both, you know, sweating and just can't, you know, we've said everything we've said 15 times. How about half an hour? Half an hour. And then the end of the conversation is, and we'll be back. We'll share our stuff. We'll get on the mat with each other. If for those of your listeners who know yoga, I mean, I think that's kind of a common experience, right? You can get on the mat, your yoga mat, do your thing with your partner. And no matter, even if it was a little hard, or maybe someone's tears, or maybe we had a little shame come up, or maybe awkwardness or, you know, frustration, we can end with a namaste. You know, the beautiful erotic wonder in me recognizes the beautiful erotic wonder in you, you know. High five. Like we came and we came to the mat and we'll be back. Like that's the practice of sexual communication rather than like the one-off of it. What I would say about the curiosity piece is like the problem that you're facing is like try to back out of the idea about this being about mismatched desire, kind of, back out some to notice that like, oh, this is just about difference. And how the fundamental thing that we're trying to do in relationship is to move from the symbiotic, you complete my sentences, banging in the bathroom moments and way of being with each other, in through differentiation, in through recognizing that we're different people and we don't want the same thing. And the way we hold that is the work of the relationship. This is just one example. And it's a really hard one. Differences around sex. It's not differences around who wants more pillows on the couch.
Yeah.
Or how often we're going to have pizza. You guys, but just to notice, I bet you guys who are listening know that you could do differences around that. How do we do that? And how can we begin to transfer some of those skills over? This is just about difference. Once we're regulated, we can see that it's about difference. And how can I tolerate what's in me and share it with you and hear your differences? And see how are we going to negotiate this? How are we going to incorporate acceptance? How do we incorporate sexual generosity in ways that feel real and good for everybody? You know, right? How do we incorporate other kinds of activities? How do we, instead of one option, can we have 100 options for ways in which we might find each other in pleasure or intimacy or connection or dirty bathrooms? Whatever it is you're doing, you know what I'm saying? We keep coming back to bathrooms.
Yeah, the bathroom thing, I've been watching Euphoria, and they do all sorts of wild and crazy sex stuff on there, and that's just burned in my brain. But Dr. Lori, I really want to highlight, I love what you said about having that space to talk about it, like going on a walk. I do think sometimes when we have issues in the bedroom, talking about it in bed can be like the opposite idea. If your partner has trouble getting it up and you're like, why can't your penis ever get hard? That is not the place to have these conversations. And it absolutely will do the opposite of what you want with your desires. Getting that space away from the bedroom to talk about bedroom things. So I just want to reflect that back to the listeners because I thought that was a really good point.
And it's a practice. It's not a one and done. I can't tell you how many people have come to me and they'll say, well, we talked about it. I told her, I told him, I told them. And I'll say, oh, really? Tell me about that. And they'll be like, well, 20 years ago, I
Yeah.
said one half of a sentence and then their eyebrow slightly raised on the left, and that was it. Then I knew. And
Mm,
so one conversation every 20 years is not going to be enough. And
no.
so knowing that you are developing a skill, you're developing a language, you're developing a capacity to be with, it's just we come back, right? We come back and we come back, right? And the idea that
Mhm.
like that's not a problem. That's intimacy. We're looking for intimacy, that's intimacy. And it's
Yeah.
practice in a yummy way. It doesn't have to be, there's pain in there, but it's in a yummy way.
Yeah. And keeping in mind to the listeners that intimacy and sex are not synonymous. You can have sex with intimacy, but intimacy isn't necessarily like the act of sex.
And if we can't speak about it in a way, it sort of boggles my mind that we expect we can do it and do it well and
Or,
find each other and initiate and it's going to be great. I'm like,
yeah.
I mean, we all do that, right? But the idea doesn't make sense. It really doesn't make sense. Well, I would never talk to you about it, but I'd let you put your so-and-so in my what.
I
Like,
know.
wait, that's what we do.
Yeah, that's
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 what
the
we
part
do.
I never quite understand, but
Welcome to being human, right?
yeah.
Being human. But this is the challenge, right? This is the learning edge for all of us.
Now, getting back to the sex clock example, of course, we're, demolishing the sex clock. We're throwing it out of the bedroom. But in relationships, in your experience working with clients, how long would you say is too long to go without having sex?
There's the research talks about definitions of sexless marriage as it's so many 5 or times or whatever it is a year. And if it's less than that, it's a sexless marriage. I'm like, okay, who cares? Do you know what I mean? To me, it's about, like, I imagine it is less about the number of times we have sex than the path that we're on. And if that path with you means that we don't have sex for a year, but we're on a path that
Mhm.
you are doing work, whatever that looks like for you, that I am doing work, whatever that looks like for me, we are doing work. The number of times we have sex is irrelevant. The sense that I'm on a team, I'm a team member with you working on this, and that might require long periods without sex. It really might. And that's really up for someone to really determine on their own because we call it relationship reckoning. Am I getting enough out of this relationship to make grieving what I can't have worth my time?
Mm.
There will be grief and you can handle it or don't. All right. Or don't, but don't make if you signed up for the relationship, don't make your grief the other person's problem
Or,
because
yeah.
you chose this and you chose them. You can advocate for what you want. You don't become a wallflower, but our grief becomes it's work we're having to do. That I chose a thing, and when I choose a thing, it means I have to give up other things.
Yeah.
But I chose this person. And until you haven't chose them anymore, then this is what we're into it with. So I think that it helps partners, both of them feel calmer. We have to hold the idea that there isn't a frequency that's needed, but that we're together working on a thing. I think that a lot of the higher desire partners' urgency is if I don't ask you for sex and talk about this and bring it up and do whatever it is I think I need to do, that's the treatment plan. The higher desire partner is I'm the only one who cares. Let me enact a treatment plan, which is to do what I do until the only way to really help them get out of that treatment plan that they have is to know that their partner cares and that their partner is there working with them on it. It doesn't mean have the sex to suit that. It means demonstrating the commitment to doing the work.
I almost think of clients that I've worked with in the past where perhaps their partner had lower desire, but they were doing all these other things for them. And so, yes, client wants to have more sex, but at the same time, there's many other ways that they're being fulfilled to where that doesn't feel like the end all to be all in the relationship.
It's so easy for this to get catastrophic. I chose you and I'm with you. And if we're not having sex right now on the high desire partner side, oh no, maybe I'll never have sex again. Maybe in order to keep the life that we've built, that means I have to give up this part of myself forever.
Yeah.
And that is a catastrophic thought. That
Yeah.
is terrible.
I saw my mood drop just listening to that.
It's death.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
And on
So
the other
devastating.
side, it's devastating. And it's like, is that what's happening?
Mhm.
But also, that's a real component of this. And on the lower desire partner side, I think the companion one there is, oh no, if I don't put out, if I don't make this happen, if I don't grin and bear it, if I don't find a way, and I'm not trying to oversimplify it. I know people have so many different experiences of this, but I'm just trying to highlight that if I don't do that, then whatever life we've created ends.
Yeah.
So you'll leave me. If we have kids, what happens to them? What happens to the cat? What happens to the house? Will I ever find anyone again? Maybe I'll just be alone forever. And that what I have to sacrifice to get the equation seems to be set up such that it's just like my boundaries, my personal needs, my sense of pleasure, what I want. And it's sort of like, so those two things collide with each other. Is that what's going on? It is for something in us. That's the way I say it. It is for a part of us. It is something true about the situation, right? In a way, and also not at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why it gets so painful, because that's what's I think's hiding underneath it.
Dr. Lori, let me ask you, when we had our pre-interview, we talked a bit about the wheel of consent. I'd love for you to give a brief explanation to our listeners, but also I'm curious about how you use that in real life.
I'm so glad you brought the wheel of consent. It's absolutely my favorite thing. Betty Martin and all of her teachers, thank you so much for all the hard work you do to share that with the world. I think that the wheel of consent and the practice of it seems so simple when you say it out loud. There's a little game you play in the wheel of consent. It's called the 3-minute game. I tell people that it's going to sound so simple that it's going to sound ridiculous. Any other important spiritual truth that any of us have ever encountered, that's the kind of thing we're pointing to here. And so the simple bit of the game is, and this is the foundation of the wheel of consent, is we do something really easy. I say to you, how would you like me to touch you for the next 3 minutes? I offer. How would you like me to touch you for the next 3 minutes? But only for 3 minutes. There's a boundary around it, not forever. What I think, and then we change roles. How would you like me to touch you for the next 3 minutes? That's one layer of the game.
Okay.
Maybe today we'll just focus on that layer of the game. How would you like me to touch you? Isn't it crazy that we have sex and maybe no one's ever asked that question in a way that we can slow down enough to be present with? How would you like me to touch you? What? I think for a lot of people that feels like they're in deer in headlights and they have no idea how to answer that question. And I think that everything you might feel about someone asking you what you want and everything that comes up as you try to answer that question is exactly what we need to work on, because that's desire asking you, what do you want right now? Not what do you want when you're turned on, not what do you want on a different day when you want to hang from a chandelier, or what did you want 20 years ago? I'm asking, what do you want right now? Right now. The you that is here in front of me right now, not the you I wish you were when you were turned on. What do you want right now? And then you get to look inside yourself and find wanting. Well, where does that live? It's systematic. So I start to learn how to figure that out, how to trust that it's the most important thing about me in that moment. It is me. I let it out my throat. I offer it to the other person, and I can tolerate what their answer is, if they're willing to do it or not. And then I learn how to receive what they're giving me. That's also really hard. And vice versa. And we ping pong back and forth. So it's like, how would you like me to touch you right now? What could be a more obvious question as a basic foundation of becoming closer to each other and being vulnerable and sharing our bodies together? And yet, really being present with that conversation and the way we are when we're with our bodies with that question just opens up like Pandora's box, like a beautiful Pandora's box, I guess I should say, right?
Yeah.
Like exactly what we need to know. What happens when you think about wanting?
I think that it can be such a fun, easy exercise to do that honestly our listeners could even do it tonight or next time they see their partner. But I just think about how every time there can be something different that you're wanting to be touched. And when you said that, Dr. Lori, my brain, if you were asking me, I would have said like a scalp massage or a foot massage. So it's not even like a touch my nipples, finger me. Like it's about what's going to feel good, what's going to help me feel connected. What do I need in my body right now?
Yeah, like I think of it as like phasing. Like what would help me like co-regulate with you? Meaning like help
Mm.
me land in this room with you, And then what would feel good? So then I'm relaxed and I connected to you and I feel good. And then maybe I get turned on or not. Right. So it's like a phased in. And the only other thing I would add to what you're saying is that like it is literally what do you want right now? So maybe I could say, right now I feel kind of sad. And when I'm sad, what kind of touch might help me soothe it or just be with it, right? Every emotional state, every place that we're in, what would you like right now? What kind of touch could I offer right now?
Mm.
And I think that's big, shocking knowing that isn't that there's an entry point in every moment. It's every moment has this possibility in it of like, well, how might I be touched right now that would be nice for me? I love that you offered scratching heads and stuff like that. I mean, I always say that like we all have that yummy kind of stuff that's just like, but it has nothing to do with sex. The examples I give are like a back scratch. A well done back scratch is, I mean, it's basically orgasmic, and that you can ask for that and receive that, and that can be enough. And if that you want to call that and whatever else you got on your mind, the sex you're having that day, more power to you.
Now, let me ask you this. So for listeners that are really resonating with this and they feel heard, they're like, wow, like finally somebody is saying how I've been feeling with my low desire and my mismatched desire in my relationship. How do you suggest people talk to their partners about mismatched desire without it turning into a fight?
Yeah. This is tough because usually by the time we get around, often we're like knee deep in this. This has been going on for a while. So I really do want to own that this is difficult. If it was easy to talk about it, you would have sorted it out. I think leading with honest vulnerability, we call it like showing your neck a little bit, kind of the raw, you could hurt me here, but I'm going to be vulnerable about how I'm feeling about what's going on. Soft, if you feel this way, it's I love you. I want to be close to you and I want to figure this out. And yet we are trapped in a dynamic. This is feeling really terrible to me. I'm trapped in this dynamic and I want to work on it with you. I think the first step is trying to help both partners see that there's not a person at fault. Each person is contributing to the dynamic and they each need to do their work. But if you can get the idea that you're locked in a dance, and it takes two to tango. So if you can get the idea that you're locked in a dance and we can see that we're going to be, me and you are going to be a team against that. That's the problem. That I think is like one of the most crucial first steps. And so trying to offer that to your partner that you want to work on it together with them. And that can be a little hard to land without someone to support you in doing that, like a sex counselor or sex coach or, a relationship person. But I think that's the push that you're trying to make. This isn't my fault. It's not your fault. It's us doing a dance. I think really it's very hard to inspire, to be curious about another person when you're hurting.
Yes,
I think
agreed.
that's really what you're aiming to be. Like, can I be curious about you while I'm hurting? I think for lower desire partners, it's very hard for them to like lead the discussion about this on their own. And then, well, what happens if the higher desire partner's trying to do it? Well, now they're just more pressuring, right? They might not be meaning to, but you can see how the roles are going to affect the ability to have the conversation. So I just want to own that. But that's what I would aim towards. Soft, open, loving. Let them know you want to work on it and that you want to make it a project. There's nothing more that a higher desire partner wants to hear than, oh my God, they want to make it a project. And that doesn't mean I'm going to have sex with you tonight.
Yes.
It means I want to read a book and listen to a podcast. I want to share some information with you. I want to set up some times to talk, right? That kind of like commitment to turn towards it with them can often, that's what you're giving them, right? That they're longing for.
And I do think podcast suggestions and books really help because it's almost like you're quote unquote blaming the podcast, right? It's not you, Dr. Lori, saying this. It's, oh, this person on a podcast said this thing.
Yeah.
So the flip side. So let's say our listener is the high desire partner.
Yeah.
And they're trying to like, repair this. Like, what do you recommend for them? How do they approach this?
Yeah. And I just want to say that there are plenty of women that are high desire partners, and that is a very real dynamic. And it's so easy to fall to only speak about the other version. So for any high desire partner, my sense is that high desire partners in general, because it feels so dysregulating to not be met in this way, and the way in which they can be like, I just want to be desired. And if that is so, and can be so intense that it can be hard to see around the edges of it. So that's what your goal is. Because the thing is, what you're wanting is this other person, right? You're wanting this to be with this other person. So to do that, you got to be with the other person. Literally. Like, where are they and what is happening for them? And not view them as a barrier to you getting what you want.
Mm.
That can be hard to hear. They're not a barrier to getting what you want. They are what you want. So what are they? What are they experiencing? How's this going? It can be really hard, because I also want to say that low desire partners can be super avoidant, and they don't want to have this conversation with you, and they're walking away as soon as you try. It's a fundamental idea of being a patient, present, solidly receptive, curious person, that I can hear what's going on with you against the same thing without getting overwhelmed myself. So the idea for me, I think that the healing place for some low desire partners is the idea that, oh, the high desire partner doesn't think they're right, doesn't think they know how sex goes. They're not thinking there's something wrong with me. They don't think that I'm broken. They get it. They just want to know how it feels for me, and they don't want anything else. And so I can feel what I feel, right? So coming to your partner with a solid, genuine curiosity to know that I need to know you before I could ever think about having sex with you. What's going on, honey? What's going on? The partner might not be like, great, can't wait to tell you.
Yeah.
The partner might be avoidant, mad, angry, leave me alone, not now, that you might meet something that's unpleasant. And that's not a problem. It's just part of the process. Yeah. Yeah. It's tricky when high desire partners are female and the low desire partners are male. It has a different dynamic because of the same male patriarchal expectations get mapped onto that. And that has its own particular vibe. So if you're a high desire woman with a low desire male, really watching yourself for wait a minute, what am I expecting men to be like and to do and to desire of me, and expecting them to come to me, just question your expectations, because that's going to go a long way to decreasing the heat and the criticism that the low desire partner can feel.
Yeah. I'm really glad that you mentioned that. I think the patriarchy sucks for men and for women. We're all victims of it, not just women. But I do think there's that stereotype that male-bodied people should always have high desire. And when a female-bodied partner wants it more and the male partner wants it less, it's almost like, what's wrong with that? I'm like, they should always want to have sex. And yeah, it's definitely very layered. That curiosity piece of it is important, because that also helps us grow and connect with our partner and have that deeper level of intimacy and knowing.
Yeah, absolutely.
If someone listening feels like their sex life is over or basically gone, what's the first thing that you would recommend to them to try?
I would say we've got to be able to talk about this. Hey, honey, would you be willing to open up a conversation, a place where we continue to talk about this? I'm not trying to get you to have sex. Can we open up a place to talk about that without any pressure?
Mm.
Sometimes you got to push it harder. If this is what you really want, the idea is again, this is metaphorical, right? You
Right.
got to grab someone by the collars and make sure they see your eyeballs and they get what you're saying. And you can do that with soft power, not being a jerk. But really, sometimes we really have to get someone's attention and advocate for what we want, which is my request is that we work on our sex life, which means, can we talk about it? Can we work with a professional? Can we read this book together? If our partners are resistant to that, we have to figure out what we're going to do next, right? Which I think requires more leverage. If you're going to stay in the relationship, how do you advocate for it in a way that gets your partner off their butt? And I don't mean to put the partner who's resisting or not wanting sex under the gun in a certain kind of way, but all of us know when we have icky, yucky feelings on the inside. Maybe we have trauma. Maybe this is just a really hard conversation. Maybe everything in us shuts down and we go into a freeze response. It could be a million different things. Maybe I'm asexual and it's really been hard and I don't really know how to talk about that. And, right? All kinds of versions. And not wanting to go there makes so much sense. And yet, sometimes we need to be pushed, like, to go towards it because we've had some kind of contract with our partners around showing up, not about having sex with them, but about showing up. And that can be a really tough pill to swallow as the person who's really suffering inside with what's going on around not having sex, and turning towards that suffering and working through it is can be really hard. But, and here we are. With love, we can do that, but sometimes we need a little encouragement.
Yeah. And one thing I would add would be when you have these type of conversations, speaking to the listeners, is no drugs or alcohol. We don't want to be intoxicated. Put the phones away, make sure the kids are asleep or not home. Like, it's really, I feel it's important to have these conversations where we are connected, we're looking in the eyes, maybe even hold your partner's hand when you're talking about that stuff.
I love that. Mm-hmm.
Letting each other know that you're there for them and this is important to you, I think also helps with that connection.
Yeah. And that you're here for all of it. You're here to sit next to them while this hurts, or while this is difficult, or while they're angry, while they're sick and tired of the crap that you've been doing. You're willing to sit there with them. What inhibits you? What shuts you down? What makes you withdraw? I'll be here. And that kind of deep acceptance is often something people have never felt in their lives. And is that not what we're trying to get out of sex? The biggest, like, gold star from the universe, right? My partner thinks I'm and they can't wait to get all over me. That's just the biggest acceptance in the world. And so we're doing what we are accepting what we have to accept to get that, the big W, the win. You know, you are amazing. I want to do you.
Yes, please.
But gotta accept the angry too, right? The whole kit caboodle.
Definitely could be a spectrum sometimes. Dr. Lori, this was so good because I think what a lot of listeners are going to take away from this is you're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. This is a normal thing that happens to people. Your relationship is not doomed. But I do think we have to approach these things differently than we were taught. Dr. Lori, where can everybody find you?
You can find me at my website. So it's drloridavis.com. But for me, it is dr-loridavis.com. So dr-loridavis.com. I have an email series that you can pick up while you're there. That's a fun way to share this information with your partner. It's like tiny chunk size information. You can read my blog. You can share that with your partner. So all these are like ways to open up conversations and just learn more about it yourself.
Beautiful. I'll make sure to have Dr. Lori's information in the show notes so you can go follow her and check her out. I love the ideas for communication. Those are always really fun. Yeah. So if this episode hit home for you, send it to a partner, send it to your bestie. If you're ready to actually work on this in your own life, reach out to Dr. Lori or myself. I also do one-on-one coaching for women and couples. And Dr. Lori, thanks so much for everything today. We loved having you here.
Yeah, definitely reach out to me if this spoke to you and you'd like to do more work.
And that's a wrap on this episode of Sip with Summers, where we laughed, learned, and probably said clitoris more times than your high school health teacher ever did. If you liked what you heard, be a gem and leave a review, share it with your favorite group chat, or send it to that friend who really needs to hear this. You know the one. Until next time, stay curious, stay turned on, and as always, keep sipping.